Hi everybody, and welcome to my channel, and here is another video of some James Bond trivia. This time it's from Russia with Love. Sean Connery called this movie his personal favourite of the Bond movies. Director Terence Young disliked Daniel Bianca's legs and used a stand-in for the scene where Bond spies on the Russian embassy. The knife used by Rosie Klebb was actually a weapon used by the KGB, so that did really exist at the time. Steven Spielberg was so convinced to cast Robert Shaw in Jaws in 1975 after watching him in this movie. The then President John F. Kennedy listed Ian Fleming's book as among his top 10 favourite novels of all time. The movie broke box office records and was responsible for launching Sean Connery as a major star rather than Dr. No in 1962. Pedro Mendes was terminally ill during filming. He had cancer, which is likely contracted due to filming The Conqueror in 1956 in the Utah desert near a US nuclear test site. The picture on the wall of the lobby of the Russian embassy is that of cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin. Of course, Yuri Gagarin was the first man in space. That was in the 1960s. The scene in which James Bond and Tanya Romanoff first meet in the hotel suite has been since used in an edition for potential Bond actors and Bond girls. The movie in Constantine's chess game or from the game between Bobby Spinks and David sort of the USSR Championship in Leningrad in 1960. Hoping for an end to the Cold War, producers Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman decided what James Bond's main enemy to be Russia. So for the movie version, his nemesis is the fictional criminal organisation Spectre. The movie makes the last appearance of Sylvia Trench, who also appeared in Dr. No. The original plan was for Trench to appear in each movie as Bond's regular girlfriend. As a guest on The Tonight Show in 1962, Robert Shaw said he had to stand on a wooden crate when filming scenes opposite Sean Connery because he was 4 inches shorter than Connery. Although he had reservations about the choice of Sean Connery for the part of James Bond, after seeing him in this movie, Ian Fleming was completely won over by the actor. In fact, as a result, Fleming added a Scottish ancestry to Bond's character in the later novels. During the helicopter sequence towards the end of the movie, the inexperienced pilot flew too close to Sean Connery, endangering him. Well, we all remember that part of the film, don't we? I don't remember seeing that part in being close, but it probably edited out anyway. The helicopter carrying director Terence Young during filming crashed over water, trapping him below the surface for a considerable time in the air bubble inside the chopper's canopy. He was rescued and then immediately went back behind the camera with his arm in a sling. Producer Harry Saltzman considered replacing him with Sir David Lean, but producer Howard R. Broccoli insisted Young finish the movie. The brutal fight in the train compartment between James Bond and Red Grant lasted only for a few minutes on screen, but it took 3 weeks to film, most of it performed by the actors rather than stunt doubles. At a railway station in Istanbul to watch filming, which caused delay shooting, Terence Young had stuntman Peter Perkins create a distraction by hanging upside down from a balcony nearby so filming could take place. The headquarters of the criminal spy organisation Spectre in this movie is actually the main office and administrative building of Pinewood Studios. Desmond Llewellyn appears here as Q, Major Boothroyd, for the first time. Peter Burton played the character in Dr. No. When Burton was unable to return for the movie, Llewellyn was cast. Llewellyn reprised the role of Q in 16 subsequent Bond movies, 17 in all. He didn't appear in Live and Let Die. Q is referred to by the real name as Major Boothroyd. Only in Dr. No, this movie, and The Spy Who Loved Me. In this movie, James Bond does not say Bond James Bond, despite the fact that he does say it in the book in which the movie was based. 21-year-old Danielle Bianchi was the youngest actress to play the leading Bond girl. A scene was cut just before Bond meets Romanoff on the ferry. Bond tries to lose his mysterious pursuer and hops into a taxi. Bond takes control of the taxi's brakes and causing the pursuing Bulgarian to run into the back of the taxi. A third car to join the pile-up. The driver of the third car turns out to be Kimran Bey. When the angry Bulgarian protests to Bey, he's told by a friend this is life. Daniele Bianchi's driver fell asleep doing a commute to 6 a.m. shoot and crashed the car. The actress' face was bruised and Bianchi's scene had to be delayed 2 weeks. The first Bond movie to end with the James Bond returning, in this case it was golfing, in 1964. A tradition continued until it was used for the last time at the end of Octopus. Lois Maxwell named this as a favourite 007 movie. Robert Shaw introduced Sean Connery to the game of golf while filming this movie. Well, I thought Sean Connery took up golf in Goldfinger, but it was this movie he liked golf. The rats in this movie were originally coated with chocolate, as they were lab rats and needed to look like sewer rats. However, it wouldn't run and sit around licking themselves. The non-lab rats were used, but they wouldn't run in the night. Direct until Sean Connery opened the door of the studio. Finally, production went to Madrid, Spain to shoot the rat sequences. The love scene between Sean Connery and Danielle Bianchi caused censorship problems in Britain. Well, they was a bit prudish back then, that time. In the scene, a sweating Spectre cameraman films James Bond and Tanya Romanoff in bed from the British Board of Film Censored. Mentioned to producer Harry Saltzman that in the scene was too explicit and keep the footage of the cameraman at a minimal as possible. The gadget Bond used his hotel telephone for bugs is actually a device called electrometer, used to check the thickness and of an inch surface things usually planted in surfaces. Much of the movie was shot on location, only for a bare minimum of rare scene projections usable for 1963. Several years later, Sir Alfred Hitchcock happened to be considering directing, with James Bond being played by Cary Grant, and Grace Kelly lured out of retirement to play Tanya Romanoff. These ideas were scrapped after Vertigo failed at the box office. Constantine's opponent in the chess match is a Canadian, since the movie is set between the current maple leaf flag in 1965 and the official flag of Canada was until the British Union Jack. Perhaps more apparent of the 1960s British audiences than to a modern audience, Donald Red Grant's use of addressing Bond as an old man when he's masquerading as Captain Nash, given Nash is also addressing Bond as Sir. It would only be odd that he could also call him old man, rather than neither familiar with Bond or competitive rank. The possibility aroused suspicion and provoked him to check pistol with Grant escorts Tanya to the restaurant car, and Bond would later taunt with his wine choice. The budget was $2 million, double that of Dr. No. Quite an expensive movie to make back then. According to an interview with Hollywood reporter Robert Osborne, producer Owen L. Broccoli named this movie The Spy Who Loved Me 1977 and Goldfinger 1964 as three of his favourite James Bond movies. From Russia with Love 2005, released 42 years after this film, introducing Sean Connery's likeness and voice. It's Connery's last performance as James Bond, and he voiced 22 years after Never Say Never Again. Although this movie was in pre-production, the historic role of the Orient Express was changed. Since the 19th century, the westward-bound Orient Express stopped in Bucharest, Budapest, Vienna and Munich and Strasbourg before arriving in Paris, but beginning in 1962 the train followed a more southerly route, stopping in Sofia, Bulgaria, Venice, Milan, and changes in the script were made to accommodate the rerouting. Walter Gottlieb played General Gogol in The Spy Who Loved Me and reprised the role of Gogol in 5 Bond movies after that. Timothy Dalton and Daniel Craig named this as their favourite Bond movie. Bond gets Grant's attention on the train when he offers to buy a cigarette from him for 50 gold sovereigns. A gold sovereign has a face value of £1. It's gold content with much than that. Although it was not released until late 1963, the movie's budget box office across Britain, biggest box office, beat out Tom Jones, The Great Escape and The Birds, all of which were released in the summer or in 82 days between its premiere in London and the end of 1963. Well, this is one. This was on a double bill with Dr. No. This is my first 2 James Bond films I saw. I was only about 4 years old back then in 1963. In the books, Bond often drives his beloved Bentley. The car appears in this movie for the only time in the films. The helicopter and boats scenes were meant to be shot in Istanbul, but were moved to Scotland. The speedboats could not run fast enough due to the many waves in the sea. As a retent boat filled with cameras ended up sinking in the Bosphorus. An helicopter was had to obtain. The specialist crew were nearly arrested trying to get one at a local airbase. Sean Connery and Pedro Amandes wore earpieces throughout this movie. The boat chase scene at the end of the movie, although supposedly takes place in the Greek, was filmed in the west of Scotland. The pier in which James Bond takes over and the Garner House scene was filmed in barrels or thrown off the boat Argyle. The Royal World premiere of this movie was held on October the 10th, 1963, and attended by John Russell, the Duchess of Bedford. It had multiple venues in London, which included the London Pavilion and the Odeon Theatre, Leicester Square. Actresses considered for the role of Tanya Romanoff: I don't know any of these. The late actress ended up getting the role of Tilly Masterson in Goldfinger. Reportedly, the producer's first choice was originally demanded too difficult by an artist as such. The Spectres Training School was inspired by Gladiator School from Spartacus. Richard Mulbane kept making rewrites as film progressed. Red Grant was added to the Istanbul scene just prior to the cruise trip to Turkey, a change that brought more focus to Spectre plot. Grant started saving Bond's life there. A later change during the shooting involved Grant killing one of the respectable spies instead of Bond, which ends up just fading his main dead. To prepare for the fight scene in which he badly mauled by an enemy alien, Sean smashed his Swedish coat with earth in ended up readiness for the next day's shooting. However, he went to put it on and found that the well-meaning wardrobe mistress cleaned it and pressed it. I don't think Sean Connery was very pleased at that time. One of 3 James Bond movies where Bond does not wear a tuxedo, the others being You Only Live Twice and Live and Let Die. The tuxedo-clad Bond in the opening sequence is revealed to be a live target of the Spectre Training School, wearing a mask. Colonel Rosie Klebb was based on an actual Russian colonel that Ian Fleming once wrote about in the Sunday Times. Robert Shaw originally turned down the role of Red Grant, calling the script rubbish. His then wife Mary Ewer convinced him to take the part. The chess tournament set during the beginning of this movie cost $150,000. The ceiling at the top of the chess game was set as was actually a matte painting. The Guardian setting in the opening sequence was inspired by last year at Mine Bad, which had a lush Guardian setting with statues. It was actually the Guardian of Pinewood Studios and director Terence Young at the Guardian recreated from the art house class. Location manager William Hill was forced to play the role of Captain Nash at the last minute when the actor eyed for the role couldn't make it. The hulking Bond assassin Donald Red Grant provided a temperamental for several bound European henchmen in the later James Bond movies, such as Ants in You Only Live Twice, Eric Krieger for You Only Live Twice, and Baz in A View to a Kill. This was Pedro Amendes' final theatrical movie appearance. On the island ferry journey, the Mandarin's tower can be seen in the distance behind Bond, which is layer in the world is not enough. Producer Harry Saltzman made his film debut of Hitchcock style as an extra boarding on the Orient Express. The storyline deals with a Lecter decoding machine which was called Spectre decoding machine in the original Ian Fleming novel. The name was changed because of its similarity and the name of the fictional criminal spy organisation Spectre. It's based on the device on its knowledge of the Enigma decoding machine from World War II. Special permission was granted to film in Mosque, which has never granted permission before. In the book of the same name, Rosie Klebb is described as a sadist who is expert and extreme pain and enjoys the art of torturing. The sounds of the boat chase were replaced in post-production since the boats were not loud enough and the explosion shot in Pinewood got out of control. Burning water is eyeball and serious injury in 3 stuntmen. Well, it is a dangerous occupation, being stuntmen. The production was beset with problems which posed serious problems for the ambition of the movie. Many film scenes don't match with the rewritten script and the movie was over schedule and over budget. Editor Peter R. Hunch used interactive editing techniques and tricks which saved the movie. Well, if they had done that, I think the movie might have been a disaster and a flop. For the opening credits, Maurice Bender had disagreements with the producers and didn't want to return. Designer Robert Brownjohn stepped into his place and projected the credits for film-made dancers. The Gypsy Camp was filmed in an actual camp in Turkey, but was actually shot in a replica of Pinewood Studios. Diana Bianchi said in an interview that the walk-through nude scene in the bedroom where Tonya meets Bond was done by a body double and not her. William Hill, who is listed as playing Captain Nash, uncredited, in a scene that lasted less than a minute, and the production manager of the film, when directors was unable to find anyone suitable for the post, persuaded William to do it. This is the first James Bond movie to feature John Barry as the premier composer. The score originally still comes from Monty Norman's work on Dr. No. Barry felt that Goldfinger 1964 was the first movie in the franchise which he had completely creative control of the soundtrack. James Bond doesn't appear until 17 minutes and 15 seconds into the movie, when Red Grant's voice is first heard 1 hour and 20 minutes in. Sean Connery and Robert Shaw played adversaries again in Robin and Marion. Well, Michael J. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli are the current producers of the Bond films, named this as their favourite Bond film. The original screenwriter was Len Dayton, who accompanied Howard Saltzman and Sid Kane and Terence Young to Istanbul, but he was replaced because of lack of progress. The helicopter chase was filmed with a radio-controlled miniature helicopter. The first James Bond movie where the main villain, Rosie Klebb, is a woman. It was not the only Bond film may lead the villain until The World Is Not Enough. By the time the movie opened in the US in April 1964, the production was already underway on Goldfinger. The advert on the side of the building, having an escape door in the woman's mouth, was called Call Me Buana, starring Bob Hope. Underground outtakes reveal that Grant Robert Shaw is not wearing the usual cold-preceded underwater underneath his towel, but there is no evidence of it in the recent print. Regular James Bond producer Ken Adam was unavailable to work on this movie due to his work on Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. Robert Shaw dyed his hair blonde for this movie. The train interiors were shot on the Orient Express. It's only later that it was realised that the exterior shots of the train needed were unable to go back to the original location. Stock shots of the Royal train were used. No one noticed. Sean Connery appeared on The Murder on the Orient Express 1974, which he likes. This movie involves murder and famous train. For the opening chess match, Constantine wins the game with a reenchantment of Boris Spassky's victory over David in 1960. Sid Kane built up the chess pawn motif in $150,000 set for the brief sequence. The periscope scene in this move, in which Bond and Cameron Bay spy on the Russian embassy from the, was actually a dummy wooden double made from new manufacture Blair and Sound. The pre-title sequence was shot in the grounds of Pinewood Studios, in particular the District Building, or a popular part of the backlot, or and Grade 2 listed Victorian country house, and it used as offices and movie sets as weddings venue in the grounds. It was also better seen in the daylight in the MGM movie of another well-known non-James Bond, Ian Fleming book Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 1968. All the movies and television series made at Pinewood. The two main villains, Rosie Klebb and Donald Red Grant, were played by Oscar nominee and have been nominated for Best Actress in Supporting Role in the Roman Spring of Mrs. Stone in 1961. Robert Shaw was Oscar nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for 4 seasons in 1966. Well, that's the end of my From Russia We Love trivia. I hope you liked it. Please like, comment and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you all again in the next trivia video.